You know that feeling after a breakup? When your entire world feels like it's been turned upside down, like you can't even recognize yourself anymore? We always hear the same cliches. Time heals all wounds, or just move on, there are plenty of fish in the sea. But let's be honest, that advice doesn't really help when you're in the middle of the storm. What if I told you that there are deeper psychological truths about breakups that very few people ever talk about? Truths that explain why they hurt so much, why they change us, and why they might actually be one of the most transformative experiences of our lives. Today, we're going to dive into 5 shocking psychological truths about breakups that nobody really tells you. But once you understand them, they can change the way you see heartbreak forever. And along the way, I'm going to share my own reflections, some research, and real-world examples you might relate to. Truth number 1. Breakups hijack your brain like withdrawal. One of the most shocking psychological truths is that breakups don't just hurt emotionally. They actually light up the same parts of your brain as drug withdrawal. When we form a bond with someone, especially an intimate, romantic bond, the brain rewards us with dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. These chemicals don't just make us feel good, they literally rewire how we think and behave. That's why being in love feels so addictive. It actually is. When the relationship ends, your brain doesn't just get over it. Instead, it responds almost like an addict being cut off from their supply. You crave their presence, the sound of their voice, the routines you built together. And when that's gone, your brain goes into panic, desperately demanding the hit of connection it's missing. Think about it this way. Imagine someone who drinks 5 cups of coffee every day, suddenly trying to stop cold turkey. Their body screams at them with headaches, irritability, fatigue, until they cave in. Breakups are like that, but 1,000 times worse. Because it's not just your brain chemistry that's at stake. It's your identity, your future, the very person you thought you'd share your life with. I remember a friend of mine who went through a nasty breakup and literally described it like trying to quit heroin. Every time he tried to distract himself, one thought, one memory, or even one photo would pull him back. Science backs this up. Studies using brain scans have shown that when recently heartbroken people look at photos of their ex, the same regions of the brain linked to addiction fire up intensely. So that's why it feels impossible to just move on. It's not weakness, it's biology. Knowing this should make us more compassionate with ourselves and others. Instead of beating ourselves up for still missing someone months later, we should realize the brain takes time to rewire. Truth number 2. Breakups shatter your sense of identity. The second big truth is just as painful. Losing a partner is like losing a part of yourself. When we're in a long-term relationship, we don't just share time, we merge identities. You adopt each other's habits, inside jokes, favorite shows, maybe even ways of speaking. You start planning life around we instead of me. And then suddenly, the we becomes I again, and you're left wondering, who am I without them? This identity shift is one of the least talked about reasons for the deep pain of breakups. It's not just mourning the person, it's mourning the version of yourself that only existed in that relationship. Think about it. Had you ever noticed how hard it is to do certain things alone after a breakup? Going to the restaurant you both loved, watching the shows you used to binge, even small routines like texting them goodnight. These are not just habits, they are anchor points of identity. Remove them, and you're left floating. Psychologists call this the self-expansion model. When you form a relationship, your partner's identity expands your own. You literally add them into your sense of self. When that ends, it feels like a piece of your identity was amputated. That's why people talk about feeling empty after a breakup. It's not just a metaphor, it's psychological reality. I've felt this myself. After a breakup in my 20s, I remember walking through the city and suddenly realizing I no longer had anyone to check in with. It felt strange doing things purely for myself again. At first, that emptiness is terrifying, but over time, it can also be freeing. Relationships expand us, but losing them forces us to discover who we actually are outside of them. This is why many people, after enough healing, look back on a breakup as a kind of rebirth. Painful, yes,
but also clarifying. It reminds me of Carl Jung's idea that moments of crisis often force us to individuate, to confront who we actually are beneath all the roles and attachments. So while breakups can shatter our sense of identity, they also give us a chance to rebuild it, this time, deliberately, on our own terms. Truth number 3. Breakups expose our deepest fears of abandonment. Now, here's a truth that many overlook, but is crucial. Breakups often trigger a profound crisis of meaning in our lives. When we're in a committed relationship, it's not just about sharing time or affection, it's about creating a narrative, a shared story that gives purpose and direction. We imagine a future together, build plans, and invest emotional energy into what the relationship represents. When that relationship ends, not only do we lose a person, but we lose a part of that future and meaning. Suddenly, everything can feel pointless or confusing. This is why breakups can sometimes lead people into depressive spirals, existential questioning, or a kind of emotional paralysis. Loss of meaning is devastating because humans naturally crave purpose. Viktor Frankl, the famous psychologist and Holocaust survivor, argued that meaning is the core driver of human psychology. Without it, suffering becomes almost unbearable.
Imagine you spent years building your life around the idea of us or our family, only for that entire vision to collapse overnight. The question, "What now?" suddenly haunts you, and the usual distractions or comforts might feel shallow. In everyday life, this might look like losing motivation to work, losing confidence in your identity, or questioning your values. You might find yourself asking, if this relationship wasn't meant to be, what does that say about me, about my worth, about what I want? I've seen people close to me struggle with this, and even personally, I recognize how a breakup can shake the foundations of your worldview. But here's the thing. The crisis of meaning is also an opportunity. It invites you to rebuild your life's narrative from scratch. It pushes you to explore new values, new goals, and a renewed sense of self. This idea connects to existential psychology, which teaches that crises, painful as they are, can act as catalysts for growth. So the heartbreak isn't just an ending, it's the ground where a new story can begin. Truth number 5. Healing requires facing the pain, not escaping it. The last psychological truth might be the hardest to hear, but it's essential. True healing from a breakup requires actively facing the pain instead of avoiding it. In our culture, we often try to stay busy, distract ourselves, or jump into dating as a way to forget the hurt. But suppressing or denying emotional pain only delays the healing process. Psychologists who study grief and trauma tell us that healing comes from processing emotions fully, feeling the loss, understanding it, and integrating it into your life story. This means allowing yourself to cry, to feel angry, to grieve, not as weaknesses, but as essential steps to emotional recovery. Think about a physical injury. If you break a bone, pretending it's fine and not treating it properly will only make things worse. Emotional wounds are no different. When you avoid the pain, it can fester, leading to bitterness, depression, or patterns of avoidance in future relationships. A great example from everyday life is something I've personally noticed. Many people fear being alone so much after a breakup that they rush into new relationships prematurely. This often leads to repeating the same mistakes because the underlying pain and lessons weren't fully faced. Jordan Peterson often emphasizes the importance of cleaning your room metaphorically, meaning confronting the chaos in your life head-on rather than burying it under distractions. The same applies to heartbreak. It's about standing in the fire long enough to walk through it. When you face the pain consciously, you develop resilience. You learn that pain is not a permanent state. It's a passing experience that can teach you valuable lessons about yourself and others.
Personally, I've experienced how shaking off the urge to escape and instead sitting with the discomfort of a breakup led me to unexpected personal growth. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Wrapping up and reflection. So those are the 5 shocking psychological truths about breakups that most people don't talk about. To quickly recap, breakups hijack your brain like drug withdrawal. They shatter your sense of identity, expose our deepest fears of abandonment, trigger a crisis of meaning, and true healing requires facing the pain head-on. If you've ever been through a breakup, I hope you see now that the pain and confusion you felt wasn't just random suffering or a sign of weakness. It's a complex psychological process that taps into the very core of who we are. Understanding these truths can change how you approach your healing and how you support others going through heartbreak. From a personal point of view, one of the most important lessons I've learned is to be patient with myself during these times. Breakups aren't just about ending something, they're about losing, rediscovering, and eventually rebuilding. This takes time and a lot of kindness towards yourself. I also find it fascinating how these truths connect with big ideas in psychology and philosophy, from addiction neuroscience to attachment theory to existentialism. It's a reminder that heartbreak isn't just a personal drama, but also a profound human experience shared across cultures and ages.
Question for you. Now, I want to hear from you. What's been the most surprising or helpful insight from these truths? Have you experienced one of these aspects of breakup pain yourself? Share your thoughts or your own stories in the comments below. If you found this video valuable, please consider liking it, subscribing to the channel for more content like this, and hitting the notification bell so you never miss an update. It really helps support the channel and allows us to keep bringing insightful, thoughtful videos your way. Thank you for watching, and remember, heartbreak is tough, but it can also be a teacher. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.